Hello.
How's it going?
I've just got up, just firing up my machine, Ranjan. So yeah, I'm really not sure. Yeah.
Well, I just banged out a tweet. It's interesting. This is sort of the whole idea of getting back into the swing of the news cycle is, as you know, I'm a bit of a news junkie, so I enjoy it. But on my last tweet, I quote tweeted Matt Kennard, which I don't usually do. You know Matt Kennard, don't you? The lefty.
No.
Oh, okay. So he runs this thing called Declassified with Mark Curtis, and they look at UK foreign policy. So what he's done is he's had a look at what's his name, David Cameron's meetings in 2015. So what Matt's doing is he's charting the press's, and particularly the Guardian's, vendetta against Corbyn. So he's basically showing that Cameron met Catherine Viner and Jonathan Friedland in July 2015, and going down that road. But yeah, the thing that I was just looking at was the Irish Business Post. Just having a quick look at it, because apparently Biden was asked for a quote for the BBC, and he said, "The BBC, I'm Irish," which, and I think somebody with an Irish name had retweeted it, and I thought, okay, so just help me get ready for the rejig of what it all means for the Great Reset.
What's this one? What's mode 4?
Mode 4
UK...
is mode 4 is part of the General Agreement in Trade and Services. So do you remember in 2001 the WTO? So straight after Seattle, they continued, and they were doubling down, and so they had what they call the Doha round. In the Doha round, so it was never. I mean, I think it was basically written down, but because the World Trade Organization is consensus, we've still never actually done it. The Doha round, started off with Uruguay, and then Doha was the November 2001 round, straight after September 11th. And so that was why TTIP was very easy for me to understand as soon as I heard about it, because it was all about essentially the Great Reset, because they would they would refer to.
Well, that's interesting. All the other stuff, Ranjan, about Corbyn and even
you mean the
all
media stuff?
All the bubble gum around Biden, all the stuff about Brexit, back of the queue, Northern Ireland, hard border. Okay, that is all bubble gum, right? Mode 4, okay, is about what will be implemented. So effectively, you said, news cycle junkie. Well, most of the news cycle is actually just irrelevant fluff. It's the Rovian actors in history. It's the discussing and cork sniffing the appearance of things rather than things in themselves. Mode 4 is part of the core thing in itself about the regime that they're trying to institute here, which is a corporate regime whereby there are a set of rules for the corporations, which are subject to their own tribunals, as we know.
Yeah.
Right. And it's about then a general rule for everybody else. And the easiest way to break it down is to effectively, you've got Brave New World for the bourgeoisie or for the enablers. Okay, so these are the technocrats that will be in the vehicles that are subject to Mode 4, if you like. You have 1984 for the plebs, that's everybody else. And then you have, above that, you basically have the Ubermensch. And
Schwab.
In terms of
Yep, Schwab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's Gates as well, you know. Now, have you ever looked at any of Gatto's work?
G-A-T-T-O?
Yes.
No, I haven't.
Right. Well, he was an American teacher, okay, and he won. I think he was a teacher in New York, or certainly in some deprived inner city area, and he won Teacher of the Year in America several times, okay, in the 80s. So as funding was being withdrawn from the US education system, he was trying to give the kids under his charge a decent education. And what he did is an analysis of how the American education system had gone from a critical thinking model to what he called a Prussian model, and the Prussian model being one for the Prussian system of government, which was one where it produced a nobility, it produced a technocratic element, and then it produced an element of people who just followed orders. So very much like Plato's gold, silver, and bronze citizens.
It doesn't sound too different to what my interpretation is of what an ideal Indian caste system sounds like.
Well, yeah, I think
Stratified.
Yes, that
Permanently for
very, very much
generations.
so.
Yeah.
And one element of it is that the the idea that people are spotted early and groomed for the next level if they're capable of that, and breaking up family ties and kin based sort of loyalties and things, which are really rather awkward for a police state to deal with. So,
but that's the plan.
Well, the Great Reset spells it all out, doesn't it?
But Gatto, did you say it was in the 80s that he was pointing this out?
Yeah, he published a number of books.
He must have been pointing out something that he'd already seen happening. Right?
Well, he traces it right back to Kaiser Wilhelm and Bismarck and the unification of Germany first time around. The thing with all of this stuff, Ranjan, is that
please,
if you look at in Machiavelli's time, when he wrote The Prince, he was talking about what we call Italy today, which wasn't Italy then. The Roman Empire had obviously broken down, and Italy was a number of it was several
principalities, warring states,
city-states. Call them what you will, right?
Sure, yeah.
And that only got the unifications that well, of course, Germany was very similar. In the time of Charlemagne, what's it?
Charlemagne, yeah.
Charlemagne, yeah. His time, okay. He united in what was called a bunch of principalities into the Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah.
But then you have to look at the Palantir dynasties. You mean
the Plantagenets? Do you mean the Plantagenets?
Not the Plantagenets. No, the Plantirs or Palantirs are the Swedish lot and some of the North German lot. So this is the European nobility, right? And the fusing together of European power bases into the the conglomerations that became the countries, if you like, it's a really important part of understanding where we got to in what we called our democracies, right? So most people are wholly ignorant of the English Civil War, right? And what went on between, say, 1600 and 1750, right? Most people are completely unaware of the huge disruptions in 1848 and all of there were revolutions all over Europe in 1848. It's not really in many textbooks, but
this is when Karl Marx got kicked out of Paris, right? Was it or Germany? He got kicked out of one of them. Yeah,
loads and loads of stuff went on at the time. It doesn't matter what happened to Karl Marx. It doesn't matter that he's the person that wrote Das Kapital. It doesn't matter that Das Kapital was written. It doesn't matter that Adolf Hitler came along. It doesn't matter that he wrote, or whoever wrote Mein Kampf, right? It doesn't matter that Winston Churchill wrote the history of the English-speaking peoples. It doesn't matter. What matters, okay, is that within those books there is a narrative, and those narratives can be triangulated against other less well-known narratives to get somewhere approximating to the route that we've been on. Okay, so this is why Gatto's work resounds with me so well, is he talks about syllabus, the syllabuses that are put through education systems. And some people call the state education system the state indoctrination system, including me, right? You get this correlation as well, as the more educated people become, the more likely they are to subscribe to establishment endorsed lines of argument. And this is all they are, really. They're lines of argument. They are structured opinions and collected together into schools of thought. But Gatto's explanation of what the American system was in education, what it became, and how that affected the political system there is very, very, very informative. Particularly then when you look at our own education system in the UK, then you have to get into Tony Blair, deliverology, Lord whatever he's called now, that came up with this deliverology.
Barber. You mean Barber?
Is it Barber?
Michael Barber, I think is his name. Yeah. You mean Adonis, don't you? But there's Barber as well.
I don't mean Adonis, no.
Yeah. Barber's the other guy. Barber's the one who did deliverology. Again, I don't think he was ever voted in anywhere.
No, well, these people aren't. That's the point.
But carry on what you were saying.
So with the at the moment, there are two main things which we're expected to believe. One, that there is a dangerous and deadly pandemic which is caused by a virus called SARS-2 COVID-19, right? That's something that we're absolutely supposed to believe in. The other thing that we're absolutely supposed to be believing in at the moment is that someone called Joe Biden has won the United States race to become president of the United States of America. Okay. And most of the analysis revolving around the Joseph Biden alleged winning of a race to become president absolutely does not look at the broader political aspects of how the United States of America functions as a republic. What I'm talking about is the federal nature of their constitution and state constitutions, etc., and how their central government or federal government works, i.e. with the Senate and the Houses of Congress, but also how that they have a whole subset of local institutions local to the states, and that their ability to deal with things that affect people at a local level actually in the Constitution do come somewhere above where those central federal things are, right? Now, by getting people to believe that, right, we now have Uncle Joe, and I use that term as a pun because we all know who the other Uncle Joe was, don't we?
What,
Right?
Joseph Kennedy?
No, Uncle Joe Stalin.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah. So we've got Uncle Joe in the US, right? And we've got Orange Man Bad in the US. And then we have a deadly killer virus for which we need a vaccine. And the vaccine will make us all safe. Yeah. And though that, Ranjan, that is the news cycle at the moment that you're talking about. But what it is they are two pillars of what we are being asked to expect coming down the line. One, that we will be vaccinated, and two, that we will be following all that comes down from the savior of the US people, Uncle Joe, saving the American people from Orange Man Bad. That is the news cycle, right? Everything else outside of that, okay, is just puff and smoke and mirrors. So, okay, so it.
I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Thankfully, you've pointed me in this direction before, and
Twitter is concerned mainly with all of the puff, smoke, and mirrors, and it's people who've been drawn into minutiae. You know, the baseball card details or the top trumps details
sure,
of a painted caricature of the things that are controlling our lives.
Well, Mode 4 in particular is something that you are aware of. Have you looked it up? Did I tell you any more about it?
I saw your tweet and I saw that you've linked to something on there.
Yeah, so
I looked. I mean, I looked at TISA, TTIP, TPP.
at the time, yeah,
I looked
sure.
at the negotiations on the American trade deal that were leaked between
Sure.
Boris's team and the US team. I've listened to a lot of David's talks on these things, but not for a long time.
Actually, you know what, Roger? I would be very interested in what David has to say about Mode 4. Extremely interested, especially given that he's doing this work on AI. And I mean, to a lesser extent, what he was saying about Macron and what's going on in France at the moment. But yeah, I'd be very interested in what he has to say about Mode 4. Because
I'm just looking now at this TUAEU thing that you linked to.
Yeah, beneath. Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at it, but I just thought, you know what? I had a quick look at it. I believe it might be an Austrian union. I met an Austrian trade unionist in Belgium for NGO talks about TTIP, the financial side of it, and he was very good. I don't know if this guy's from the same union who's published this thing, but I mentioned Mode 4 to him, and he said, "Oh yeah, no, we know about that," and spoke about it. The only times I'd really seen anybody write about Mode 4 was German trade unions talking about their fear that Mode 4 would allow Bulgarian workers to be um, in Bulgaria. I think maybe plants to be outsourced, manufacture of plants to be outsourced to Bulgaria, and for Bulgaria to then afterwards hire non-EU uh, staff on non-EU wages,
Yeah,
on lower
I
wage.
yeah.
But then it's
Okay,
the
I'm
other way
aware
around.
of these things. Have you
Yeah,
read?
but it's also the other way around where a corporate lawyer would probably say, right, if I go to India, I can still charge my US wages.
Yeah, there's a thing called Corporate Watch, and they've produced some very good research.
Yeah, there's the US corporate watch and the UK one.
Yeah, so
They
they
wouldn't touch this. I'm sure they would never touch something like this.
well, I think they already have. I think if you read their report on uh, explaining the financial crisis and everything, I mean, it does touch on this stuff. It's meat and drink. I think.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
no,
know if
I'm not
we.
saying they're not any good. I mean, yeah, the False Dilemmas paper was really good, and their stuff on certain corporations is really good. I'm unsure if they would touch Mode 4 itself.
Well,
Uh,
why not?
well, I mean, I don't want to say, oh, we think very differently about these matters, but I think that your clarity on certain things obviously it's been very useful for me because you would basically just say to me, look, that's really just noise, whereas this is where the game is. And so I think because of that ability to detect where the action, where the big game is, it means that there are certain things that you might not recognize. So, for example, Mode 4 is fucking taboo. It is taboo. Um, it's so
Well,
I'd
it would
imagine.
be because it's basically setting up a caste system of slavery for grades of workers, and
That's
this
the
is George
that's the first time.
Orwell's Not Counting Niggers. If you read Not Counting Niggers, the George Orwell pamphlet, um, this is what he basically says. The proposals for the fledgling EU, and he wrote that in the late 30s.
When I
Okay.
so
And it's also on India, and he's talking about the exploitation of people in India by the European superstate.
No, sure. No, I get what you're saying. I think it was probably October 2015. Yeah, because it was probably the same date that I interviewed John McDonnell the first time. It was quite an interesting day. I think the night before, Asian Dub Foundation had played a gig at Brixton, and I went with a mate who knows them. And then the next day, in Elephant and Castle, so home of Latin American community and much gentrification, then trying to knock down the shopping mall there and stuff like that. There, somebody popped a flyer on our table when we were eating at a Mauritian restaurant, talking about a poet. Where is he from? He may be a Mauritian poet who was doing a poem, a poetry reading from a set, and the poetry reading it was called Coolitude. So in the same way that I've forgotten his name. There was a famous French African or possibly French Caribbean writer, maybe Césaire Aimé, who basically did this thing called negritude. Have you heard that term before? Negritude.
Negritude.
Yeah, so
I
it's kind of like black is beautiful.
mm,
That whole movement of reclaiming the significance of the word black to say, hey, it's not bad, it's good. Uh,
mm-hmm.
we are good. So negritude. And so this poet, who was also an academic of some sorts, he wrote poems in sort of broken English, French, and Spanish. I remember I played some of it to Helena. She despised it. But he came up with this term called coolitude. And I'm sure Orwell would have written about coolies, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. He would obviously have written about coolies, and mode 4. So, do you know what the definition of a coolie is, or anything close to what the definition is? Do you know what it means?
I don't know.
Yeah, a coolie is where you get on a boat.
I only know it from 8 Hot Mum.
Right. Okay. So I don't know that, but I mean, I'm sure you'll get this. I mean, I'm sure it's consistent with what you know. A coolie is somebody who can't afford to leave their country, but wants to leave their country. So they get on a boat, and when they get to where they're being sent, they work off the travel fare, and they don't realize they'll also have to be working off the accommodation fees of
Oh,
wherever it is
right.
they're staying.
That's not what I thought it was.
Yeah, you go and you work on a tea plantation. So you leave India or China. I always thought all coolies were Indians, but they're Chinese as well. And so the point
Well,
is,
I thought they were Chinese too, because it's what they referred to the railway workers.
in the US.
Yeah, and then also, yeah. So
So
I mean,
the difference between a coolie and a slave is that a coolie has signed a contract. A coolie is not technically an involuntary laborer. A coolie has technically signed a contract and technically can pay their contract off and become a free man.
I see. Okay.
And so when this guy did this poem about coolitude and was talking about coolies, I suddenly realized, shit, this is mode 4. You know, it's very similar. So in the same way that you said that Orwell said we're all niggers now, absolutely, the Great Reset and the caste system that you're talking about is we're all coolies now, except I would imagine the bar to stop being a coolie, to work your way out of the indentured, because it's an indentured contract.
Understand? Yeah.
Yeah, the bar to work your way out of that is, obviously just getting higher and higher. So, yeah, I don't shed too many tears for Mr. Trump, but at the same time, the statements.
That's the whole point. Is that Orange Man bad, Uncle Joe.
Yeah, but listen to me though. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I do pay attention to what you're saying. I didn't say.
No.
that.
I know. I'm not. What I'm saying, Ranjan, is I hear what you say, right? But there's a. If ever there was a time to see the bigger picture here, just to get an idea of the direction of travel, it's now.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I fully agree.
Which means forget Uncle Joe, forget Orange Man.
No. Yeah, it's not even forget.
Forget
it's
the bumbling buffoon from Eton.
Yeah. But
forget the city arbitrage spiv.
Yeah, sure. But Roger, listen. Here's what I'm saying. It's consistent with what we're both saying. Is that, for example, I saw a tweet just now from someone who I admire and respect. Very good at lots of things that he does. Comparing the tweet from the two foreign ministers, one from Raab, one from the German one. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Raab, I didn't realize, but when I read it in a bit more of a detailed way, Raab is saying, okay, it looks like Harris and Biden have won, but some people were saying that Raab was also saying, the result isn't in. But then they can. Sure, yeah, but I'm not disputing facts here. I'm just comparing the two tweets, and then the other tweet from Heiko something, the foreign minister of Germany. Mm-hmm. This was being portrayed as if it was, statesmanlike and la-di-da, but the amount of implicit promises and roadmap for the future, for NATO, for climate, I don't know if they were talking about employment and the transatlantic stuff. I mean, that was far more scary for me because, as you know, one of the things that David and I and yourself have in common is that until Donald Trump came in, I was, part of the group of people who are getting people to discuss what TTIP really meant. And so all of that is very much back on now. So, for me, it's a weird one. It's like I've had a 4-year break from being concerned about that. I mean, for me, that was the best thing about Donald Trump. The absolute best thing about Donald Trump was that he ripped all that stuff up. I was worried that Rob, as foreign secretary, as I said, I saw those images of him in Vietnam. He's obviously been to loads of places. But when I saw those images of him in Vietnam, elbow bumping the guy there, and then they said, oh, yeah, CPTPP. So this speaks to exactly what you're saying. In many ways, they're just taking different routes to the same shit. And for me, in a way, the idea of what is a good result, when I vote, just before I said, okay, fuck it, let's vote for Brexit, when I sort of openly made that decision at the last minute, it was based on this. None of this is going to be very nice for people, either way, but I'm in a better position to be able to deal with it than most other people. So sorry to those of you who don't like what I'm going to do, but I'm choosing this. It's not going to be nice, but let's do it. I'm up for it. It is a war, so let's fucking fight. Let's not pretend it's, let's all kiss each other and make up. No, it's a fucking war. It's unresolved. Let's do it. So now we're just in another phase. Biden's coming in and Harris and that whole World Economic Forum mob, they're there. And we've got to fight them. That's it.
Well, I think...
you can't stave it off, in the same way that people were scared of the previous.
Well, actually, that's where I don't think it's a fait accompli, simply because of this. Number one,
you're talking about what are you talking about when you say it's not fait accompli? Which are you referring to?
Right. I am to the COVID-19 led Great Reset agenda. Okay, which includes your Mode 4, right? That's one thing I'm referring to. And the other thing I'm referring to is that Uncle Joe Biden is the seal upon that COVID-19 Great Reset agenda going forward. Okay.
Hold on. Just to clarify exactly what you've said so far. So you were saying that you don't think something is a fait accompli, and I was unsure about where you were going.
You're saying what I heard you say was that
I was just basically saying
we will get over it and move on because Biden's probably won, right? And
no, it wasn't even.
And that then we should deal with the things that comes up because of that.
Certainly, yeah. That's what I was saying. Yeah. I was saying it doesn't fucking matter who's in charge. We've got to fucking deal with it.
What I'm saying is quite clearly, no, I think we need to fight this battle. Is the battle to actually
stop Biden now.
It's not stopping Biden, it's stopping the Great Reset technocrats from seizing control of the whole game. We cannot not have this battle now. It's not an option, because if we don't
okay, fine. Now, right, Roger, can I tell you what I agree with you on here?
We're going to be in a war that we can no longer win.
Okay, can I tell you what I agree with you on here? And you already knew the answer to this, but it's still very useful for me that we're having this chat right now. Certainly for my messaging. What I strongly agree with you on is that it is extremely important now to recognize and communicate, because the whole point of communicating is to communicate to people who can swing or might swing, not to people who are already on your side. This is my view anyway. It's more useful for me to think like that right now. And so in that sense, it's very important to say, hey, I'm going to enjoy saying this. In the same way that you said to me, look, Boris has won, so you got to say congratulations and give him a fair go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said that to me, and I thought, hey, I feel better already, because I was I was deeply pissed off that he won. But I recognised, hey, you're fair about that. That's fair. Either I'm in this country and I'm going to cooperate or not. So I figure this, regardless of what happens in the courts and the results, at this stage, it's very important to be able to say, and for me to be able to say, I recognize that Biden is far more dangerous than Donald Trump when it comes to this, and this. And therefore, as a result of that, or no, I'll say the reason why his was worse is because of this, and this, and to set that out. Anyway, either way, therefore our game plan needs to start thinking of these things, because if we don't, then we're just sleepwalking into a worse disaster than one we were already in.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think
So we're agreed.
pointing out that we dodged a bullet in Hillary Clinton, which I think the world did dodge a bullet when
I
Donald
agree.
Trump got elected.
But you know what the difference? Do you know what the difference is between you saying that and me hearing that from other people who think that? Is that other people who think that, and these are people who I like and admire, my friends, they'll say, "Oh, we dodged a bullet on Hillary," but then they don't recognize that the dangers. Well, they basically just hate Trump so much that they want him out as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So for me,
Biden is a bullet from the same fucking gun. That's the point.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's the gun that's important, not the bullet.
Yeah,
and the thing is, I'd put it this way, okay, is Donald Trump is also a bullet, okay, but he's the bullet that was fired. He was fired from the people's gun, okay, right or wrong. And a lot of people will be right for the wrong reasons, as it's always the case.
No, sure. Yeah, is it the epidictic argument where you give the right answer but you give totally wrong reasons?
Yeah. So what essentially, on the face of it, seems completely clear is that there was a lot of enthusiasm and support for Donald Trump's message, which boils down quite simply to let's bring the jobs back and get people back to a degree of security that they had in the past, right? That's his basic message, just saying, you realize you want to be able to get on with your lives and have a reasonable standard of living. Now, that's a really simple message. A lot of people will then go into, oh, but it's bad for climate change, it's bad for this, it's bad for that, right? And get into all of those sub issues, right? On the face of it, there are two, it's the Great Reset and vaccinations against this deadly virus, which we're all told it's essential to believe in.
Well, yesterday when I was at the food shop in the afternoon, the organic food shop, my friend who runs the place was very worried. And by the way, it's heuristic, not epidictic. It's an heuristic argument if you give the right answer but the wrong reasons. But he was very worried about what it all means now, because of exactly what what you're saying. For COVID, for food, the chipping, it's going to be really strong now, isn't it, Roger?